And hello everyone, welcome to Around the Pound. I'm your host for this one, Chris, aka The Mole, and joining me, as usual, is James Phoenix,
Hello.
Marcus Shadow,
What's up?
and all for the month of February is Anastasia Laserbeam.
Hello.
And we're going to be taking a look at the Amazon Prime pilot season, and this is the first one. It's going to be The Man in the High Castle, because we were going to do all of them, but there was a lot more this season, so we just narrowed it down to the three we most wanted to see. So yeah, we're going to kick it off with The Man in the High Tower, or High Castle, sorry, Man in the High Castle, which, yeah, let's just say this program, this episode, it was a good episode in my opinion, but it had all the subtlety of a brick to the face. Like, was there any need for a SWAT sticker in every fucking scene? We get
Agreed.
it. We get the concept. The concept's a genius of it's a post World War II thing where what if the Allied forces had lost? Cool. Did we really need a SWAT sticker in every scene? Like even when they're dialing a phone, it's there in the center of the phone.
Phones, it's on the toilets, the refrigerator. Like even Apple doesn't post as many like freaking logos as these people.
Yeah, Batman has more subtlety than these, and he puts bats on everything.
Yeah. Swastika ring.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a Times Square. It was like literally, you get it, yeah, you get it, yeah, you get it. Who won the war? It's like, oh, okay, we got it.
I will admit, I was about an hour into it just before the credits, and I saw one more SWAT stick. I was like, oh, okay. They won, okay.
Like every frame has it. It'd be like, where's Waldo? You could just look on every frame through the entire movie. Where is it? There it is. I'm sure you could find it.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that, Jim?
Maybe they went a little too far, but I don't think it was that over the top. Because as someone who has a history degree and a study this can attest, the Germans during that time did put swastikas on literally fucking everything. That's the thing.
But it's been like 20 years since.
I know, but the fact of the matter is Hitler is still alive and in power, and Hitler had a hard-on for people knowing that he was in power. And as a result, they would literally put their swastikas on everything for several reasons. Number one, because they were big on brainwashing and making sure they were in complete control of the people. So they would want the simply to remind people, hey, we're in charge, we're everywhere, we're watching you, don't fuck with us. Number two, they like to rub it. Hitler and his people would love to rub it in the faces of all the Americans. That, yeah, by the way, we won. Don't forget that. We killed your parents. By the way, we won. Yeah, don't forget.
We killed your parents.
And the same thing as in the Japanese scenes where they had the rising sun flag all over the place. Same thing. Granted, it doesn't make as much sense for the Japanese to do it, but the Nazis it makes sense.
I'm going to make the case, which has actually been proven to be true. The Nazi symbol was used as much by the German forces as the American flag. Now, Pew, look at your phone.
Hey, there's not an American flag on it.
Oh, okay. When you go down the street and look at the highway where it tells you the speed limits, do you have American flags on it? You do have a lot of American flags on stuff, but it's not on every fucking thing.
I don't have one on my refrigerator, or my toilet, or my phone.
Yeah, it was way too... As it was way too in your face, because they used it as much as America used the propaganda posters of Uncle Sam, we want you, because it was war, it was propaganda. That's what that stuff is.
They're not at war anymore.
Yeah, they see it. This is basically... I hated how not subtle it was, because it's a genius concept done for idiots, and I'm like, oh, I hate that.
Well, I think it's all in how you look at it, because that's how you view it. But from the perspective, again, of someone like Jim, who is a history buff and he's got a degree in history and stuff, and from my perspective, the way I saw it was pretty much the way Jim saw it. Of yeah, Nazis would totally do that, even out of wartime. They would want to rub the Americans' face in it. Of yeah, see, we own your soil now. This is all ours. And so to me, the swastika all over the place actually kind of fit with what would have happened if the Nazis had won the war. So I think it comes down to how you view it, and and I could totally see your point, because if this had been anything else other than Nazis, yeah, way too much symbol placement, just
But
way
I
too
think
much.
like
But the
the
fact
thing
that it
with
was the Nazis immediately following World War II, I was like, okay, I can let that one go, because
Yeah,
it makes sense in that respect.
yes, and
Yeah,
now
but
don't get me don't.
I also made the case and it has been proven that the SWAT sticker was used as much as the American propaganda. When America won, did they do this all over Germany? No. But for some reason they have it in their heads that nah, Germany's just arrogant. It's like, okay, we get it. The Allied forces won the war, but instead of going by the really biased opinions, why don't you look at the actual evidence? You know what I mean? It's like this is it's sort of like well, like we've mentioned before now. Of if you compare, for example, Queen of the Damned to the Interview with the Vampire, the books. Interview with a Vampire is Louis' interpretation of Lestat, not what Lestat's actually like. This is like an American perspective on what the Nazis like, which is the wrong way to approach something like this.
Yeah, but I just feel it was like just a little like too crazy because I can understand they do that, but this is supposed to be like making a life afterwards. If you want people to like submit to your country or at least not try to inspire rebels. I
Yeah.
mean, like literally, this is like pushing people. Hey, do you want to rebel us yet? Do you want to rebel us yet? Are we too much for you? Do you want to rebel us yet? No. Okay, we'll put a swastika in your face. Like
Yeah.
they're just asking for it at this point.
I also feel like I mentioned, the other negative aspect of this is the book of this seemed to address more of the beliefs of the people that had won and how that would have actually interpreted, how it actually would have affected civilization growing and stuff like that post-war. Cool. This one, they seem to push that to the back burner and think just putting a SWAT sticker in every scene would do, and concentrate more on the Game of Thrones style storyline of who's going to be America's next top Hitler.
Next Top Fuhrer, or,
Yeah.
or Game of Hitler. Yeah, it's just, I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I thought it was really awesome, but, it's always other little things. It's just like, yeah, you kind of just scale back a bit. Just scale back.
And I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they just went with where the conflict would be, and the big source of conflict here would be what will happen after Hitler is taken out of power. And the consensus, at least in the movie, and my guess is, history would probably concur with this, if Hitler wasn't in power, it probably would have been much worse.
Oh, I can agree. That's where the conflict is, and the book did address those stuff. I just meant that the book also went more into how the world functioned.
Right, which the series may do, but for the pilot, the pilot, as we've established before, is designed to hook you in to make you want to watch the series. And I think because of that, they took the approach of, let's get the conflict out in the open first, because that will hook the people in. Once they start watching the series, then the conflict can take its merry time, and we can focus on what the rest of the book is. At least that's what I'm hoping they're going to do, and it makes logical sense that they do it that way, just to hook the people in.
They may do, but I was looking at it for the pilot. It's like when we mentioned Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, as much as it is a little overrated in my opinion, but the first episode of season 1 established how what this world was, how this world functions, whether and what every little thing's going to be, while also establishing all the characters in a brilliant way. This one did nothing except for just say, yeah, this happened. Fuck it, we'll just put a SWAT sticker on him and you'll just ignore how this world works. I'm like, oh come on, I want to see more how the world works. To me, that's the interesting part about an alternate history.
Yeah, my guess, and I can kind of see it going in this direction. But my guess is they're going to slowly establish characters like they established two of the main characters in this one, which kind of didn't see the twist at the end coming, and I kind of have to wonder if he's going to double turn. But my guess is they're establishing the characters, and through these characters, they're going to establish the resistance, and through that, establish the world. And once the resistance has been established, and you get your core, basically, band of heroes versus your band of villains, then they're going to explore the world. At least that's kind of what I get from it. I could be wrong. They could just be like the fuck the world, balls to the wall conflict. In which case, I'd have to agree with you. It's like, yeah, if you're going to present this kind of world, present the world, not what happens in the world.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you'd agree, Jim, but one thing I felt was the intro when they had that music playing, which was beautiful music and it had the imagery and stuff. That could have been done like that, but as more of a montage of seeing the world evolve and telling people how what's going on in the world, and then you could have dialed. Then you could have gone how they did and ignored the what's alternate about this world as much as they seem to. But I don't know if you would agree or not.
We got a very narrow view of the first one, and I'd like to see more. I mean, you know,
You're something different, Jim.
Dumb as a pew, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I think she spoke because Jim seems really quiet.
I'm just listening to your opinions.
I asked you a question.
Yeah, and Jim also doesn't speak when other people are speaking, and when Stacy jumps straight in, Jim just didn't say anything, because that's what Jim do.
It seemed to be a big gap of quiet before she spoke, but okay. But yeah, it was a case of... I asked you, what did you think, Jim, about what I said about the intro and my suggestion for it?
I agree. They could have done it a little more. They could have done it a little more subtly with the, in that way. I just feel like, unfortunately, we are gearing this toward an American audience, and American audiences tend to not want to have to interpret shit. Unfortunately, that's the way television has gone this year. They tend to want to be able to understand what's going on, because unfortunately, much like film these days, in order to get ratings and to be popular, they need to garner to the widest audience possible, which means it has to be accessible to everybody, from the really intelligent people who would understand the subtlety, all the way down to the idiots that need swastikas on every single thing in order to understand what's going on.
You want to be able to figure it out in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah,
right.
I can agree with that, but the question I'd asked you was about the intro, about just so we got a sense of how this world worked more, like the book seemed to delve into more. I think the imagery with the sound should have been like a narration telling you, and then the Allied forces fell and explain how they fell, and then the Germans started to build America up to meet their blah 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 ideals, and same with the Japanese stuff. So it's like, okay, so this is how this world's going to work, and then go like we did. So it is actually explaining it to everyone.
True, but I think in that kind of instance is that kind of ruins the feel, because when you're with this type of whether it's a film or a television show, one of the most intriguing aspects, one of the things people enjoy the most, and I'm one of those people, is learning about the world and the way things are as you go. That's kind of one of the fun things, not having it all laid out in front of you to begin with, but learning about it as you go, learning different aspects, understanding it, figuring it out. I mean, you can lay down some basic facts, which they did. Even in the opening, they said, okay, basically they said Axis 1, Germany controls this part of the country, Japan controls this part, there's a neutral part in the center, and this is how it is. I think that was enough to say, okay, this is what's going on in the country, and that way everybody could just say, okay, we know what's going on, and then learn more about the specifics of it, like, oh, here's a convenient TV show in the background. We see, okay, Hitler's old, and he's got Parkinson's, and he's going to die soon. That's interesting. We now know that. We know the Japanese are concerned that when Hitler dies, the Germans are going to nuke the Japanese states and take the rest of the country. Fair enough. They establish a little bit as you go, so the audience isn't being overwhelmed with information, and so that they can kind of, they want to keep watching because they want to know more about what this world is like. It's an important tool of world building in any kind of medium, is not to completely build the world in 5 seconds. Let me give you an example here. Marcus Shadow, are you still over there?
Uh-huh.
Now, you're one of the people besides me who can attest to this. We have examples of both from a good friend of ours, QJ, who you've seen on some of the shows before. He also is a writer. He's written several stories. And I can attest, having read some of his stories, that in a story that is, for example, like his story that is known as Lavik Sam's Dice, he does a good job of giving you enough knowledge to understand the world around you without overwhelming you and explaining every little aspect, and you're learning more about the greater world as you're going through the story. Whereas with some of his other stories, for example, something like the something like the earlier work, uh, Nightbird Flying to a lesser extent, and also something like Pen and Fury, for example, and even more so, I can tell you one that's not finished yet that he's working on called what is it? I can't remember the names. He's got so many stories, but Cosmic something or other, Cosmic Flash. There we go. There have been instances in which he's done that sort of thing because he needs to build a entire world, and he throws out like just pages of just exposition on the world, and it's like, okay, I'll learn it as I go. It's not as fun when you have it all laid out in front of you on pages or in a scene saying this is the world. It's more fun to learn to experience the world within it as you see it as it's happening. Because that way you're watching and suddenly something happens, you're like, oh my god, I realize what that is. I know, oh, that's interesting. You see how things are sort of tied in and how it's kind of coming about. You're learning more, and you want to watch because you want to learn more, especially in an alternate history like this. I read alternate history novels. I have several sitting immediately to my left right here. In alternate history novels, it's very important to say, okay, this is why the world is different. Okay, we say, okay, Axis World War II, fair enough. But then it's more fun for the audience or the reader, as the case might be, to experience that world and to see things they recognize that are different as they go, rather than having it all laid out and understand, oh, this is how it was all built up, and saying, oh, this is how this changed, this is how that changed, so on and so forth. Like, it's you just hear about or see little differences about what it is, and that's what makes it interesting. Especially for someone like me who is a history buff, who recognizes all the little references and things that come in like that. It's a lot of fun to see that sort of thing, and that's why it's kind of cool. And I feel like putting that intro out, it's kind of almost, that would have kind of almost been worse than the Nazi symbolism, only because that's pretty much doing exactly what you complained about the Nazi symbolism doing, and that's catering to the lowest common denominator.
No, see, what I was on about, Jim, I wasn't about explaining absolutely everything, but if you've read this novel, which I actually own, it's in my bedroom, and it's an award-winning novel, by the way, you would know that in the first 2 chapters, which is pretty much around where this first episode was around, yeah, they covered a lot more of the alternate history, because that's the fun of alternate history, is finding out how the world works a lot more. It seems like the world was shoehorned into the background with the focus on the characters. I don't care about the characters as much, because if I want to watch a character piece about espionage and power plays, I want to watch Game of Thrones. I want to see how this alternate history is an actual alternate history. I don't want it to feel like the alternate history is an afterthought.
Well, I think the point is that we're going to slowly see how this is an alternate history or why. I think they're building to that, and that's kind of the point, is that that's the payoff you're building to. They're not going to put it out to begin with. Because the fact that somebody in this world has films from our world should kind of tell you that there's something more going on here than what meets the eye. And the fact that there's probably going to be some explanation, because before the character of Trudy got shot, she said, I found the reason. And like I said, I have not read this book, but I'm willing to bet the reason is the reason why history turned out the way it was. The reason why the Axis won as opposed to the Allies.
Oh.
The thing that was different that caused this alternate history. And that's what they're building up to, which is why they wouldn't want to necessarily give away everything about the alternate history to begin with, because that would give away the entire, the big thing they're building up to in the show.
And I can agree. Like I said, I can agree. Like I said, I don't want to give everything away. It's just I mentioned the book itself gave away a bit more, so you cared about the world. I don't care about the world right now. I can't get emotionally invested within this world because they're not giving me they're not telling me any basic functions of how this world works. All they're doing is telling me about the characters, who are pretty much cliched characters to begin with.
They're a little cliched, but I think the purpose of the series is you're supposed to learn about the world through the characters. You're supposed to learn about the world through their eyes. You hear them talking about, oh, this is how the police run the state, or, oh, this is how this interpolitical thing is going. You hear about all this information through the characters as they're experiencing it, because these characters are young people. They weren't around during the war, or if they were real little kids who really didn't know what was going on. So these are characters who are, like the woman there. She called herself Trudy. I can't remember what her actual name was. I don't know if they said it. But the woman who's going by her sister's name, Trudy, now. She said herself that, having never been out, and even the guy had said I'd never been outside New York and everything, and obviously based on the ending, he knows more than what he let on. But she even, it's interesting to see her, her reaction to what's going on because, we see that she's kind of into the Aikido and is kind of cool with the Japanese people, but we see her mother's reaction comparatively to the fact that her father was killed by them. And we see that because the young goons grew up in this world, they've accepted this world. They don't understand what the war was and what their parents fought and lost for. They don't comprehend it. And I think the purpose is that these young people who were not part of the war are now being used as pawns and power plays in this post-war world, and we're supposed to see the world through and learn about the world and what happened in the war through their eyes. We're going to see a little bit about the Nazis and how it's going through the guys' eyes, because obviously, and we're going to see more about the average people and what happened to them, and maybe even the Japanese because of her father through her eyes. So we're going to see the world through the purpose is you're supposed to get invested in the characters because the characters are intricately tied to this world and to the plot. And as a result, you're going to learn about the world and about the relevant plot points through these characters.
I hope that's the case. Like I said, I got the sense watching this that they just used the alternate history as a gimmick instead and basically downplayed what made the book awesome.
It did feel a bit gimmicky, yeah.
It felt more gimmicky because they downplayed it and inserted way more swat stickers and stuff. Like, it was just, nah, fuck it. We don't need to think about how this functions. We just need to put a SWAT sticker on it. And I'm like,
if swastikas were explosions, this would be the perfect place for it to work in, like, Borderlands 2.
Yeah, there's more SWAT stickers in this movie than there is explosions in the entire Transformers franchise of Michael Bay films. And that's kind of sad. but I don't know. Like I said, that was just my opinion. At least I felt it. If the cool factor of the alternate reality felt more like a gimmick with how they've sort of thrown it to the sidelines, sort of like to use because I know we've all watched it. Well, besides Pew, but Pew knows what I was saying anyway. Basically, to use the wrestling terminology, because we've watched the wrestling, it feels like the alternate history is the Miz, and they're concentrating on the Cena Rock feud. Back when Miz was champion, it's like I want to see about the I want the championship to be the focus. I want the alternate history to be more focused on. But I do understand that they'll probably delve. I hope they do delve into it more in the future. That can be interesting if they do. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on the pilot, Marcus?
I can kind of see both sides of it. I, again, don't really feel that they overused the swastika just because of the time period and stuff. However, I haven't read the books and you have, and I think that does kind of color your opinion a little bit of how things should be in the world because, like with Harry Potter, for instance, I know for a fact that because both Jim and I have read the books, it does color our opinions of how we feel the world should be in Harry Potter, which is that's the whole reason I hate the fourth movie of the Harry Potter series is because I've read all the books and that wasn't the book, but they had to pick and choose what they were going to focus on because they condensed it all into one movie, and that's with
the fourth movie.
Oh no, I wasn't on about the SWAT sticker opinion. I was just on about your personal opinion,
right?
As your opinion about the pilot.
Right. Well, I was getting to the whole thing because I was reacting to what you guys have been talking about, and that is like with where I was going with the Harry Potter thing is that this thing is an adaptation of a book, as we all know, like the Harry Potter thing was, and as with any and all adaptations, they're going to pick and choose what they use, and they're going to tweak some things to make the world work or to make it work for that specific medium. And they
totally failed for the fourth movie. That was
that
was probably the shittiest one ever. And I don't even like when people ask me if I love Harry Potter. I love the books. I like the movies.
Exactly, I'm of the same opinion.
I don't love them.
Agreed.
They're okay, but they're not as good as an adaptation as I would like them to be. They did okay, right. But anything with usually the book is better.
Yeah, it's the same way with me, and it's the same way with me and Lord of the Rings. Books, awesome. Films, piece of shit.
Yeah, but that's because you're looking at it from the perspective of the book first, which is how we look at Harry Potter, which is why we don't think the Harry Potter films are very good.
Yeah,
However, because
I was
I've seen
looking.
films on both sides, because I love the Lord of the Rings films, but I have not read the books. From that perspective, it's like, okay, they work as movies. If I'd have read the books first, I'd probably be in a similar or maybe even the same camp as you, Mole. And
I
that's
would
what I'm
actually
getting at.
argue that because I actually read all of the Lord of the Rings books and I think they're super shit, but I love the Lord of the Rings movies. So I'm the complete opposite on that one.
Fair enough, but I think it's a similar case here with The Man in the High Castle, of, you know, books versus movie. Of, we have Mole here who's read the books, so he read the books first before seeing the TV series. We all haven't read the book, so we're coming at it from a different perspective. And from that perspective, yeah, I can see the flaws, but I can also see why they chose to go with certain things. And if they choose to not focus as much on the world and focus more on the characters and the political intrigue and stuff, I could totally see that. I could totally understand why they would do it in this, because of how they're choosing to do the TV show. You know, whether it's right or wrong, that's in the air, because to some people it will be right, to some people it will be wrong. You know, and there's not going to be a clear cut right wrong. It's your opinion is going to be this is right, or your opinion is going to be that this is not how they should have done it. And there will always be different choices they could have made, the different focuses they could have chosen for the adaptation. This is the one they happen to choose, and as an adaptation, it works. It's not a 100% faithful adaptation, no, but nothing really ever is.
Yes,
But I liked it. I like this. I like
Yeah.
this episode. I look forward to seeing more of it. You know, it was a little bit slow, and was it me, or did the editing seem a little bit off with this one, with how they cut it? Because it seemed like they were kind of jumping all over the place, and I'm like, okay.
I can see that. I didn't feel it was that much, but I can see where
No.
you're coming from.
I think the editing was done good, because from the standpoint of how they edited it as it's film or television, they went with more of the fast dum like certain period dramas do. It's more of a staple of the genre, because it's more of dum instead of the big because if it's like a big happy or a big fantasy thing, you'll get the big static shock. But a lot of period pieces where it's more darker, they won't do them as much, because they don't want to show you the big scenic shots. That's why, like, the
Right.
biggest scenic shot was probably the one in Times Square, which was again filled with SWAT stickers. And then we cut, but the actual cut editing was like fast paced, so it's like you're actually just going through the story, so it feels more
Right.
but like boom, boom, boom. And I think that kind of works, because it is a staple of the genre in some ways.
Right. Well, maybe it's just me then, because I don't like the quick cuts like that. Like, to have a few of them in there, that's fine. Like you said, it's a staple of the genre. But it felt like every transition was the fucking same. It was always that quick transition. I'm like, okay, you're giving me fucking whiplash. Slow it down and give me some variation in your transitions here.
Again, I didn't feel like that, but I could see where you're coming from.
And fair enough. But yeah, I was just generally wondering like what you thought about the characters and the plot and stuff as a pilot, not as an adaptation at all. Because that was the adaptation thing was more my opinion. I was just wondering about yours.
Yeah. Like I said, I like that. I look forward to seeing where it goes from there. And you know, who knows? This series might actually achieve one of the primary goals of an adaptation, aside from wanting, you know, the people behind the scenes wanting to actually adapt the work and make it good.
Make money.
Well, aside from that, it's the other primary goal is to get people to want to read the books. And I could totally see this making me want to actually pick the book up and read it.
Fair enough. I could see it might do that. Whether or not it does, I don't know, but I could see it. How about you, Jim? What's your thoughts on the pilot?
I thought I already expressed my thoughts.
I thought you were responding to what I had said. I was just wondering about like the flow and how it, like Marcus mentioned, like like how it was edited, just stuff like that. But my bad, over to Pew.
Okay, I could say more if you want me to. I'm just saying. Like I said, I really liked the pilot. I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed how they built the world up. Symbolism was a little heavy. I will give you that, but I still think that's the kind of thing that, you know, that particular group was known for in history. But I think it was well done. I think it was interesting the characters to see the little hints to what was going on. The fact that the film really connecting the two main characters, the twist at the end. Overall, it felt really dramatic. Like they really built the world up well, like how this would legitimately have been if this played out this way. And it was kind of interesting to see different characters' reactions. The way the young people were kind of accepting of the world and just working in it. The way the older groups were, totally against this, but with resigned, like there's nothing we can do. How some people were trying to fight against it. They established that while it may seem peaceful in some scenes, it's not what it seems by having, Trudy shot in the street by the Japanese and having the Nazis torture the moving company owner. So to kind of explain that whole thing, so it worked really well to establish the world, both sides of it. The fact that there is a sort of a peace, but at the same time, there's also the dark side of it that did exist during the war. It is still there. Even 20 years later, this dark side is still there. And the fact that there is not only still a, the feeling of rebellion against them, but also the feeling of animosity between the two superpowers, between Japan and the Nazi Germany. And I think it was interesting to see that build up because that was never really addressed. In real history, it was always kind of they happened to attack at the same time, but there was never really that much of a coordination between them, other than that they both happen to be communist countries. Well, communist, or in the case of Imperial China, imperialist, but fascist to an extent. But the fact that they were, able to work toward a similar goal and stand in each other's ways, it does always raise that historical question of, had they won, how long could that have lasted? And it's interesting that they're exploring that aspect here, and that they're actually turning Hitler into the one that's actually maintaining the peace rather than the one causing the chaos. That's really an interesting turnaround on a historical figure, and really makes people think about him in a whole new way, and I thought that was really well done as well.
And cool. And how about you, Pew?
Like I said, I really like this, and I like to see where it's going, but I just hope they take a step back and, focus on what's really important here. And don't treat it like as gimmicky.
Fair enough. I'll let everyone rate it. I'll go first. I normally go with the buy, rent, avoid thing, but I can't do that on this one. So I'll just say, if you're listening to this, in my opinion, avoid watching it. It's heavy-handed. It's sort of enjoyable, but if you want to watch the same thing, there's better TV shows that are doing the same thing out there. So you could always watch them. It seemed really heavy-handed with some stuff, and I also don't like how cartoony some of the people are. Like the guy in charge of the Nazis, he literally comes in all black, like Darth Vader, acts completely like a cartoon villain. Like, yes, let's get him beaten to death.
Oh yeah, that was weird when they said
he's
asking the question like an unconscious dude, and then he's like, yeah, but you beat him for questioning, but he's like unconscious, he can't be questioned further. We'll beat him to death then. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, he seemed way too
necessary.
He seemed way too cartoony. As people who have seen about Hitler and stuff knows, like Hitler, for example, he was an artist and stuff like that, and he wasn't evil. I mean, he did wrong stuff, but he wasn't a super villain.
He wasn't like for his own personal amusement, torturing, and it wasn't like because he enjoyed it.
It wasn't like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. There was a load of people who were Nazis that genuinely would just happen to be that because of where they lived and stuff like that. They were as evil as we are. It's like, for example, if I was to write a piece on, say, England going over to America with the Native Americans, should I paint us all as cartoon villains going ha 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 as we go through and kill them all? Or would I not do that on the how your country was established in the first place? Because they weren't evil. They didn't see themselves as evil. They actually believed what they were doing was right. And this is almost a slap to the face of anyone with an IQ, because cartoon villains and SWAT stickers in every scene. So my opinion's avoid.
Which is fair enough, but I think the point needs to be made that you're right. Maybe necessarily, in from a historical perspective, yeah, of course they didn't see themselves as the bad guys. But at the same time, we have eyewitness accounts, not necessarily of Hitler himself. He kind of stayed out of the whole thing. Honestly, the interesting thing to think about Hitler is that if Hitler had died in, I'm trying to remember exactly what the year was, but it was like right before he annexed Poland. And it's interesting because historically of note, if Hitler had died right before the annexation of Poland, he would have gone down in history as like the greatest German of all time. Because Germany after World War I was falling the fuck apart because they were made to pay every goddamn buddy back for World War I. Their economy was completely gone. Their army was stripped down, and all their weapons got taken away.
It does make sense how it got started, and this was their opportunity to, rebuild Germany because it was in the shithole that it turned into
Right, but
after World War I.
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the fact is that happened to the point that in Germany at that time, between the two world wars, especially in the latter years before World War II, before Hitler took over, the men would go to work, and the women would come to their husband's workplace to pick up a paycheck twice a day. Because they'd pick up a paycheck in the morning, and by the time the afternoon rolled around, the paycheck they picked up in the morning would be worth like a quarter of what it was worth at the time they picked it up. That's how fast the mark was tanking in terms of a currency. And the fact of the matter is, Hitler said, no, we can't do this. And he actually stepped in, and he fixed a lot of stuff. He said, okay, we're going to fix the economy. We're going to build our military back up. We're going to be a formidable country. He established the car company in existence today known as Volkswagen because he felt that the Germans should have an affordable German-made car that they could buy. If Hitler had died before the annexation of Poland, he would have gone down as one of the greatest Germans of all time. He thought what he was doing was helping Germany by uniting the people, and yeah, he had some issues with Jews, but the fact of the matter is he thought what he was doing was good. It wasn't. It was horrible, but the fact of the matter is he thought he was good. But there were some guys, for example, one of the mentioned people vying for power, Heinrich Himmler, who historically speaking were generally known to be legitimately evil, like cartoon character evil. Like there's eyewitness accounts from people that were tortured or whatever under him and his men that show how cartoons.
Torturing a person who's unconscious and can no longer feel it. There's just no point to that.
I was gonna make the point of I understand there's eyewitnesses from there. However, like people have always said, history is written by the winners and stuff like that. It's like there's eyewitnesses about your government torturing people right now with the same level as the Nazi people. Does that mean all Americans are cartoon characters?
No, nobody said they were all cartoon characters. But the fact is that guy we saw in the show was a high-level member of the Nazi government. And who are they going to hire to run things? They're going to hire people that are like-minded, that are in the Nazi Party, that are like-minded to them, that agree with the same ideals, that have the same general outlook on life as them. And that what he was wearing, he's in all black, but because that was the legitimate Nazi officer uniform. That's what they wore. I know Hitler had a light khaki uniform, but a lot of them wore the dark uniform. It was the uniform of the SS, of Hitler's personal police, and it makes sense they would have spread into.
Culture still changes and stuff, regardless of who's in power, and everything shouldn't have just stopped and straightforward like the vault or something.
No, I was saying the point I was making, Jim, is I know some stuff like that happened, but he was literally in all black. He emerges from the shadows at one point. He gives a dramatic speech while his lackey smiles like a cartoon character at his word. He's basically an overly acting bad cartoon character. He's basically the Red Skull at this point. He's not a proper Nazi. He's the Red Skull interpretation. I just wanted him a little bit more three-dimensional instead of cartoonized. That was my only point. But like I said, that was just my opinion of why this should be avoided. But for their rating, just to round this off, let's go with Marcus.
Well, I would say give it a watch, and I liked it. I think it's got a lot of merit to it. I hope they do expand the world because the world is endlessly fascinating. And in all honesty, I think the thing that got pretty much all of us to want to actually watch this was the concept of the world. So I think they presented the world fairly well. And give it a watch. You can go on to Amazon now to watch the pilot. It should still be there. That should at least still be there for you to watch. But yeah, I think definitely give this a watch, especially if you're into stuff like that. Then go for it. I think it's fun and it's entertaining and it is quite thought provoking in terms of the concept of the world. So yeah,
and cool.
It was interesting how some of the vets are now wearing the Nazi badge just because what are they else to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And fair enough. And over to Jim.
I was gonna say I agree with you on that last point, and that was an example of good symbolism that they're showing that some of these guys that did fight in the war, they saw so many of their friends and allies killed around them. They saw the bomb dropped in, I believe they said on DC. They saw what happened, and the fact of the matter is, they have it's to show that depression that those who formerly fought have resigned themselves for the most part to this is what life is. Same, that's the thing, and it's. I think the point of the message is so that they've resigned themselves, but there are a few, like the guy who's being tortured, that are willing to still fight against this, and they're rallying the young people to kind of take up the cause, which I think is cool. But overall, I would say give it a watch. I think it's a good pilot. I think it has potential. A little heavy-handed in symbolism, yes, but I feel like it's still a really good story to be told, and it still gives a really good feeling for what a world might have been like if that history had played out in this way. And I think it's a lot of fun to explore that world through the characters and to see what's happening. And I'm interested to see what's happening and who this man in the high tower is and what type of science fiction elements are going to come in here to explain why this guy has footage from our reality, because I'm really interested in how that happened.
Production edit by mistake. Like when you see people who are playing Yetis wearing watches. Okay, it won't be that though. But that's fair enough. And Pew.
I think it's intriguing. It has potential. It's not the best thing ever by any means. I'd give it like a 7. It's potential. I mean, there are other things that are, better done than this. But hey, if you like it, check it out. It's like the newest thing. It might be something that other good people are going to be talking about. And I could see this being a popular thing, that a whole bunch of other people would get into. So that could be cool too. Like to get a whole bunch of opinions on it or watch it as a group thing. But yeah, I think it's alright. Well, I like to see where it's going. I might watch another episode or two. If it stays the same, I'll probably just move on. But if it gets better, then I'll obviously check it out more.
Cool. So that was our review of The Man in the High Castle. And next one up, I believe the next Amazon one we'll be doing this month will be Nico and the Sword of Light. Or Nico, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah, it should be probably explained for the benefit of the audience. We decided that for sake of ease, because Amazon pilot season is already almost coming to a close and we really haven't gotten through any pilots yet, we're going to limit it to looking at just a few of the pilots that we all particularly agreed that we enjoyed.
He mentioned that at the top of the show.
He did? I don't remember him hearing that. Okay.
Right.
Yes, he did.
Fair
That's
enough.
the first thing he said.
You don't remember me hearing that?
You know what I
hearing
mean.
that.
Shut up.
I remember that quite well when I said it.
I don't remember Jim smelling proper English.
Yeah, well.
Smelling proper English.
That's because I didn't.
I was kidding, but I know that's the type of thing he would totally pick me up on if I said that.
True, no, you're right.
Yeah, but no, I believe the next one is Nico and the Sword of Light, and then the third one will be Mad Dogs. So, yay. And also on Around the Pound this month, we do have a look at films that get turned into cartoon shows. That'll be fun to tie in to the Lair of the Phoenix Mummy Month, which also stars Pew here on February. Yeah. Hashtag February.
I see what you did there.
It's part of the Pewniverse. I was your host, Chris Aikid-Mole. Thank you to my guests.
You're welcome.
And see ya.
You're welcome.
See ya.